The housing market, at least the seller's market, has been on shaky ground since the COVID era began. Before then, getting a house was relatively reasonable, depending on where you lived in the country. But here in Florida, housing was reasonable statewide until later in 2020 when the state opened back up while many parts of the country remained closed. Florida became popular among the states because we're advertising ourselves as reopened, which drove tons of people down to relocate in the Sunshine State. Home inventory tanked, which skyrocketed prices, especially in 2022, and we've been in this housing nightmare ever since. The rash of hurricanes we've had only made things worse for homeowners, particularly with homeowners insurance. But the recent hurricanes did seem to change the minds of many people about living in Florida long term, which contributed to a spike in inventory. Just over the last couple of years, statewide inventory has jumped over 500%, and it's not just due to hurricanes, but also because of the Surfside condo collapse, which is driving what many people call a condo apocalypse in Florida. Many condo communities require millions of dollars to update their buildings, money which most residents simply don't have, which is causing a major problem in that market. Definitely something to watch out for if you're looking for a condo in Florida. Despite the inventory climbing significantly in the last couple of years, home prices are still extremely high. Some factors play into that, including a shortage of new homes built after the housing crash happened in the late 2000s. Also, building materials are significantly more expensive these days. Another reason for high prices is due to stubborn price holdouts from sellers. They saw what websites and real estate agents recommended for their home value, and they believe their home is worth a lot more than it actually is. So, there's a lot of problems plaguing the housing market, not just in Florida, but nationwide. So, I did find a few videos that details the state of the housing market today. And I'll start with the first one here. This one is from Yahoo Finance, and I'll go ahead and get started on this one.
Well, KB Home cutting its revenue outlook for the year after reporting weak second quarter results. This is the housing market. It remains sluggish, with existing home sales seeing their worst
still
May
extremely high
since 2009. Joining me now, we've got Meredith Whitney Advisory Group CEO. Meredith, good to have you back on Yahoo Finance with us. We just heard remarks from Fed Chair Jerome Powell that he plans to keep rates on hold. So what is the risk that poses to the housing market?
It probably should go up, if anything.
Well, the housing
My
market looks
opinion.
like it's going to be up for its worst year
Rates
in
go down,
decades.
prices are going to go up,
Last year,
I think.
2024 was bad. The prior year, 2023 was bad. We're on pace for about 4 million units of existing sales this year, and I think actually we're going to come below that. That's significantly below estimates, and that poses a real problem for the general economy because it's such a big.
Well, you know what? That's actually a good thing that sales are extremely low, because they should be. Because people would be absolutely insane to spend $400,000 or $500,000 on an average house, like a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, or a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom, or a 2-bed, 2-bath house. It is insane. People just can't afford it anyway. I mean, the average household income is what? It's like $70,000 a year, maybe $80,000 a year, possibly, if you factor every region nationwide. I mean, to get a $415,000 house, you're going to have to be making like $110,000 a year income. Plus, you have to factor in the 10% that you're going to have to put down on the house, or I guess they prefer 20%, but good luck with that. I mean, nobody's going to come up with over $100,000 just to put down on a house. Plus, there's the issue with building materials being more expensive, and like plumbing materials, and everything's just gone up, especially with the insurance industry. It's gone way up too. So, I mean, to even get to that, you have to be able to buy a house first, which most people can't even do because they're simply too expensive. So for them to paint that as a bad thing, that the year-over-year house or existing home sales have dropped, that's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing, because this should incentivize people who do have houses that they're trying to sell. You got to lower your prices. I mean, that's what it all comes down to. But there's also problems with the home appraisals and the local appraisal offices, which are government entities. I mean, a lot of places, they're appraising houses for a lot more than they are really actually worth. And I mean, a house is only worth as much as someone is willing to pay for it, really, which kind of was problematic during COVID, especially in Florida, because people from wealthier areas in the country, or people who were used to spending a lot more money on a mortgage in other parts, like in New Jersey and Massachusetts, New York, even over in like California, they moved into Florida where they were already used to paying extremely high rates compared to what we're used to paying. And like back in, oh, what was it, like 2008, 2009? I mean, no, actually, it wasn't even that. I think it was 2015, as a matter of fact, that the average mortgage was about $800 or $850 nationwide for the average mortgage rate. And right now it's somewhere around $2,400 to $2,800. It's tripled just over the last 10 years. And it's unaffordable. I mean, we haven't tripled our wages in the last 15 years, or 10 years rather. So, I mean, I don't see this as being bad news at all. And I think they should increase the rates for sure.
GDP. So not only do you have when someone when a family moves, they buy a lot of furniture, do renovations, spend at Home Depot. The NAR estimates that it's about over 14% of U.S. GDP comes from home sales. So it has ripple effects.
I mean, it makes you wonder.
Across.
I don't like pausing them with weird looking faces, but it makes you wonder how out of touch a lot of these anchors, these reporters, these news people, these quote unquote experts. I mean, how out of touch are they with everyday regular ass Americans? Do they really know how much money that the average family is making? I mean, do they honestly factor that in? Because they make it sound like that, oh no, like house buying is way down and this is so bad for which I get it. It is bad for the economy when housing isn't doing well, when nobody's buying a house. I get that, but it's not for the reason that people don't want to. People really want to, and many people are desperately wanting to buy a house, but it all comes down to the price. At the end of the day, it comes down to the price. If the average house is selling for $415,000, that means that the insurance is going to cost probably 3 times as much as it did just 10 years ago. So if housing went down, if it was cut in half, and if the average house around the country was only worth $200,000, I mean, it would be reasonable to assume that homeowners insurance would probably fall by half because, you're insuring a house that's not worth almost $500,000 anymore. But are we going to get to that? I honestly don't know. I don't know if we are or not. I mean, chances are these 3 videos that I've found, they're not going to give us any exact, pathways to get housing back to where it was, back to where it's actually affordable. And it seems like for the foreseeable future, it seems like we're stuck in a nationwide housing bubble.
Across the board. I think that the Fed is in a tough spot, and I don't think the housing industry is going to benefit because you have I think wage inflation and real inflation from goods inflation, and then you have a slowdown in the economy. So I don't expect we don't expect the housing market to improve
too much debt
that much, if at all. We think it's going to weaken throughout the year.
What role does the generation that is still kind of sitting on homes, locked in low interest rates? We've heard that they're
not going anywhere,
and the kind of silver tsunami even generation is less likely, according to some of the recent surveys from Redfin as well, to actually sell their homes or list their homes because they are in such a sweet spot right now. How much of that is also impacting the equation?
You bring up a great point. So
well, and also there's also an issue with the grandparents who are, for lack of a better term, they're passing away and they're leaving their houses to the generations beneath them. And more people, they're not deciding just to live in the house that was given to them and just stay there with not having to worry about rent or mortgages. I mean, some people are. Some people definitely are, but a lot of people are just wanting to just take the money and run, put it up for sale, get a quick $200,000-$300,000, and just take the money, and then they'll just blow it on whatever over the next 5 years, and then they're back to broke, and they're without a house, and they're back to paying rent or mortgage or whatnot, and it's not a good viable solution. I mean, it's just the nature of American society, because there's many other places in the world where if they inherit a house, I mean, come hell or high water, I am never leaving that house. Never. I mean, to be able to enjoy a life free of rent or mortgages, I mean, talk about a dream come true. But too many people aren't doing that. I mean, if somebody inherits a house, chances are they're just going to sell it as quick as they can and just take the money and run.
So we estimate that over 60% of existing homes are owned by households over 60. And what you see now is
that's going to be a problem.
The ARP sites that they want to age in place. And what's more, housing, the Joint Center for Housing,
I guess who's going to buy them all?
Studies at
BlackRock,
Harvard says
Vanguard,
that only
State Street.
1 in 10 seniors can afford assisted living. So they're in a situation where they can't afford to move. They want to stay in place.
Why would
And
they
a
want to?
very surprising trend is that seniors are taking out equity in their homes, which they have a
Yeah.
lot of, to be able to stay in their homes, make renovations, to be able to safely age in place and afford, hopefully, if there are any workers left, at-home care.
Additionally here, Meredith, since we're talking about the generational breakdown here, you think about so many of the
Or you
new
can get married
home
and
buyers,
stick with your
first-time home
spouse for the rest of
buyers,
your life.
and I think about millennials as
Then you'll have
well
an
here, who
in-home
are
caregiver.
also still much of the generation, and Gen Zers who are starting to become first-time home buyers as well, saddled with
No, they're
student loan
not.
debt. This has been something that's called out upon the banking sector outlook.
Can't
I was
afford
taking
it.
a look at Apollo chief economist Torsten Slok's outlook here, saying that student loan repayments are actually going to push many borrowers or repayers into default. And so that could be happening soon. That could impact wage garnishment as well. To the extent that that overflows into the housing scenario, what kind of picture are we looking at as a knock-on effect?
Well,
Probably the most obvious answer possible, but
look
I'll
at
let her
that
answer it.
that split in generations as the avocado toast generation. It's people between 24 and 38, and they don't own homes for the most part because they can't afford to
And they
own
never
homes.
will.
But what they have been doing has been spending all of their discretionary income, and of course, not owning a
On
home, you
bullshit.
have more discretionary income. It's been cheaper to rent than it has
Vacations,
been
credit
to own at
cards,
homes because of escalating
$100,000
property
vehicles.
insurance and property taxes. So you're going to see spending from the avocado toast generation that has been with the high end generation really like driving this, the high end consumer really driving this economy. That's going to slow down. And I think Torsten's right about
Obviously.
student loans. Now,
Should
the
have
other
slowed
issue
down
is
years ago.
when a consumer loses skin in the game, and there's been
But see, I don't know if she'll even touch on this, but if that is true, if my generation and Generation Z, if they start slowing down spending as they should have done years ago, I mean, it's amazing that they have any money at all to spend at this point. It's going to drive down spending in the retail sector, entertainment sector, travel sector, I mean, which employs a large swath of the population, and that will most likely pave the way to a higher amount of unemployment, which was a large driver of the 2008 crash. Their unemployment went, over 10%, maybe up to 12%. And when people get unemployed, they have to rapidly sell their house or else they get foreclosed on. And, the dominoes start to fall from there. So that could be the driving factor, which may force housing to collapse in value. I don't even know when that's going to happen, though, or if it even will happen. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, I thought it was going to happen in 2023. Didn't happen. 2024, nope, didn't happen. This year so far, nope, not happening. So I don't know.
Such a forbearance for student loans for so long that once they are required to pay the student loans again, there's somewhat of a shock to the system, and there's a natural default cycle. Versus if they were paying a minimum amount into this down for their student debt. I think that's just a consumer trend that you see in so many so many lending products. But student loans, 1.6 trillion outstanding, is going to be a big bite for the economy for sure.
It's only going to go
You've
up.
got a compounding of issues that home buyers are thinking about right now.
You would think that young people would be looking at the situation and listening to the older generation and seeing that so many people aren't even using their degrees at all, and they're just sitting in, six figures worth of debt, and they have, nothing to do with their degree. And you'd think that they would think twice about getting into college, but they're not. They're not. And even the generation that's hopelessly in student debt, they're still recommending to the younger generation, yeah, you got to go to college. You got to go get a degree. That's the only way. And it's only going to make it worse. It's only going to keep going up and up. And I mean, I don't have all the answers for that, but
whether
it's
that
not going to be
is
good.
how much they're going to be paying for a home and the affordability of it, as either driven by what tariff policy flow through or the input costs for wages could mean, especially as we're seeing a crackdown on immigration. And then additionally, just where they would like to live, of course, in local.
Well, the crackdown on immigration would be a good thing because it'll open up the job market more. It'll give more opportunities for employment, because if you put 20 million illegal immigrants into the country, most of which are not only adults, but they're fairly young adults, they got to work somewhere. They got to make money somewhere. They can't just sit and depend on the government, because eventually that dries up. And the more they depend on the government, the more our taxes are going to go up, and that's worse for everybody. But when you return them back to where they came from, those who are here illegally, by the way, that opens up more opportunities for regular Americans to get jobs. And you keep seeing people on TikTok who complain about not being able to find a job anywhere, that they've applied to 1,000 different places over the last 9 months, and they can't figure out why. But they're also protesting to keep illegal immigrants in the country, which is one hell of a conundrum, because you're demanding that the people who have taken the lower level jobs, you're demanding that they stay right where they are, but yet you can't find any jobs at all, including the lower level jobs that you've been applying to. And, you're wondering what the problem is and why you can't find work. Well, that's the reason, because millions and millions of adults were pouring into the country over the last few years and essentially taking whatever few jobs that there were, which is why the unemployment rate is probably so low, because so many of these immigrants have taken these jobs, and it's a problem for everybody now. So
location itself, all of those things considered, is the dream of owning a home, is it still attainable for those who are really trying to figure out where they can get the best bang for their buck right now?
No,
Well,
generally
where
no.
people want to live, it
West
happens
Virginia,
to be the most
maybe.
expensive properties. If you want to move to Erie, Pennsylvania, you could probably afford a home. If you want to move to parts of Ohio, you could probably afford a home. But
In the
where
middle of
people want
nowhere.
to live is there's a shortage of housing supply, and you have a
If you want to live where like 95% of people under the age of 40 want to live, the answer is hell no. No. If you want to go move into a small rural town in Ohio where there's, about 1,000 people or 10,000 people living in this little town that's like an hour away from any major city, yeah, possibly, yeah. But you're not going to get your big shopping malls. You're not going to get nice movie theaters. You're not going to have an easy access to an airport where you could go on vacation multiple times a year. You're not going to have a slew of different restaurants to choose from, and all the whining, the dining, the entertaining, and all of it. You're just not going to get any of that in these places where these houses may be realistically affordable, which even in those places, they're not really nearly as affordable as they once were.
combination of high home prices and high rates. Typically, when rates go up, values go down.
That's
how
why I
the
said
math
raise the
works,
rates.
that has not
Raise them.
happened. So
15%.
rates have
Go up
gone
to
up.
15%.
Home prices could.
No, rates are not going up nearly enough, dude. The rates have barely moved over the last couple of years. I mean, the highest that the home rates went was what, 22, maybe in 23, where the rates were flirting around 8%, 8.2%. That was about the highest that the average mortgage rates got, and right now they're hovering at what, 6.8 to 7%. And housing is still extremely expensive. What they should do is double them. Let's really hit it where it hurts. Let's put rates at like 15%, and let's get this thing down quickly. Because otherwise, as long as houses stay as expensive as they are, it's just going to be a long-term problem. And what's going to end up happening is that giant hedge funds and giant companies and corporations are going to end up gobbling up all the houses, and we're just going to live in a renter class, which is really what the elites want. They've already been very clear about that. They don't want you to own a car. They want you to rent a car. They don't want you to own a home. They want you to rent a home. They want you to own nothing and be happy.
Continue to go up, and actually there's not that much activity, and that's what's keeping the home prices skewed towards the high end. The low end, there's very little activity, so people with means are moving, and people without are staying put and struggling to stay and age in place.
As we think about what's working its way through Congress right now, and what's been called by President Trump the big beautiful bill, does there need to be more of an effort to incentivize home purchasing?
Oh yeah, just dump money from the government into people's laps. That's really going to solve the problem, because that worked out so well during COVID, giving everybody COVID checks, $1,200 here, $600 here, $500 there. Also paying people $700 a week to be on unemployment for well over a year. I mean, that really worked out for everybody. It's not like inflation ever happened or anything. Yeah, just let the government just dump money into people's laps.
I think that home purchasing
No, the answer
is
should be
good
absolutely
for
hell no.
any economy and any
Housing values
socialization,
need to come down. That's it.
You put down roots. You're committed to the community. You're committed to paying your loans. You're committed to holding down.
How do you do it?
job.
I don't have all the
It
answers, man.
has so many good things. Now, I just don't think that
She's the expert.
this environment, and also
Supposed to be.
the 5 Ds, diamonds, diapers, divorce, forget what the four, and death.
Yeah.
Those aren't happening because people are putting off getting married. So what you see is single women are buying homes, but
Yeah, and their house poor is all hell, though, too. They're house poor. They're buying houses without having them properly inspected, and they're living in a house for about a year, and stuff starts going wrong, and now they're crying on TikTok about they don't know what to do. And a lot of them are saying, I wish I never bought a house because I don't even know what to do. I don't know. I'm trying to learn how to fix this and fix that, and I found out that this is going to cost $5,000. That's going to cost $4,000. They said my roof's going to have to get replaced in about 2 years. That's going to cost $18,000. I mean, too many people are house poor, especially if you're single. Our American society is not set up for a single income to support a household by yourself. You can't just buy, I mean, yeah, I guess you can. You could buy a house if you make like 80, maybe $100,000 a year. You could buy a house all by yourself. You're not going to have much money left over, but unfortunately, we're in an American society which requires a 2-income household, which really sucks, and it really shouldn't be that way, but that's life. That's where we're at now, and that's where we're going to be at for the foreseeable future. But being, especially a single parent, I mean, where the hell are you going to get all that money from to deal with childcare, extracurricular activities, and then paying your utilities, and then paying all of your different insurances, and also paying your mortgage, and then also paying your extremely high car payment and everything else that gets involved with daily life? I mean, that's definitely not the answer. I mean, divorce sure as hell isn't the answer. That's not good for anybody. It's probably contributed to this nightmare that we're in anyway. But anyway, so that was the first one. Let me jump over here to the second one. This is red flags in the U.S. housing market. This is from the Schwab Network. And right before I hit play, let me just adjust a little bit because I don't want it to be too quiet. So let's see how
Joining
this
us now
goes.
for insight on the real estate and housing market, I'm joined by Aaron Sykes, founder of Sykes Property. Aaron, thank you so much for joining us.
She'll be a little bit
we have a big week ahead
better
in terms
spoken
of
than
a
the
lot of
last
different
lady.
housing data this week. We had some recently as well, showing just some weakness, whether we're talking about home sales or builder sentiment.
Oh, it's
Builder
just a little
sentiment
gully.
sitting at
Just a little
2.5
weakness.
year low
Just
now.
a little bit.
How are you seeing these trends playing out in the markets that you cover? I know you work basically on the eastern seaboard, so up and down.
In other
What are
words,
you
she's out
noticing
of
about the
touch with
trends?
America.
Yeah, well, as boots on the ground agents, we've seen these trends for the last 6 months to a year. So they're just now hitting the data, which is why it's always so important to check in with your local agent to make sure what's happening in your particular market. Now, I definitely see the weakness, particularly in Florida. So I cover Florida, New York, and New Jersey.
Yeah, good.
And of those 3 markets, New Jersey has really been holding the strongest. There's some weakness in
Which is
New
hilarious.
York.
Who the hell wants to live in New
Hamptons,
Jersey?
Definitely a weak summer, down
Sorry,
by
New Jersey.
30% on our
My bad.
seasonal rentals.
Never
But
been
out
there,
of
so I guess I have
Florida,
nothing to say.
we're seeing
Or should have nothing to
50%
say.
increases in inventory year over year. We're seeing prices pull back 7 to 10%. So that's where the red lights,
Not
those
good
red
enough.
flags, they're really blaring in Florida.
Not good enough.
Okay, so 2 things I want
50%,
to touch
maybe
on,
we
given
might
that.
start heading in the right
What is it
direction.
about New Jersey that's holding up?
You know, New Jersey is affordable. Looking, comparing
Affordable.
to New York City or to Long Island.
Hey, New Jersey, is it affordable where you live? Is it very affordable in New Jersey? Because, I mean, from what I've heard, it's extremely expensive to live in New Jersey. At least that's what I've heard. Heard the taxes are absolutely insane. I mean, it is a blue state after all, so you've got a whole slew of different taxes that you got to deal with. So, I mean, I don't know. Do you agree with her? I mean, I somehow have a feeling that it isn't exactly the most affordable place to be living, but, whatever, I'll digress.
In Monmouth County in particular, that is a hot spot. You're 45 minutes from the city. You can commute by
But hot
train,
spot
by bus,
usually
by
translates to
ferry,
expensive.
by car. You get half an acre.
Oh, you only have to drive, 45 minutes
and
just to
you're
get to
under
work.
$1 million. School systems are amazing. So that is what the customers are looking for right now. They're not looking for condos. And that's why the Florida market's been so challenging, because it's a condo-driven market.
Absolutely not, lady. Oh my God, dude. No, the reason the condo market's fallen apart in Florida is because of the Surfside or Seaside, or yeah, Surfside condo collapse, and that forced the governor to pass a law that requires every single condo building in the entire state that was built, I believe, before 1980 to get their buildings up to code. And not only that, but they have to have money in holding, in escrow, in their coffers, ready to update these buildings as soon as possible. And they're finding out that tons of condo buildings all across the state are flat broke. They don't have any money. because they've been mismanaged by these presidents of these HOAs, and they don't know what the hell they're doing. And a lot of the money really has been either squandered or embezzled or who knows what. And you got condo buildings all over the state that simply don't have the money to update their buildings. So people are frantically trying to sell because they're getting this massive bill from their HOA saying, hey, you owe $75,000 to the community by the end of the year because we have to get the building up to code. And they're saying, well, I don't have that kind of money. I'm either on a fixed income or I don't make that kind of money. I can't just, pull 70 grand or 100 grand. Or, I mean, I've even seen over $200,000. I mean, I'm not going to be able to pull that out of my ass. So what they're doing is that they're forced to sell. They have to sell their condo. And you can look around the state of Florida. There's some condos around there going for dirt cheap relatively. I mean, there was one that was advertised. It was on some video that I saw where the condo was going for like 70, I think. It was only like 70,000, even had a water view. But the problem was the $200,000 that you're going to have to pay as a one-time fee to the HOA in order to contribute your portion of what needs to be paid to update the building and have enough money in escrow in order to make that happen. That's why the condo market is falling apart in Florida, because it's become a giant nightmare because a lot of condo buildings were built before 1980 here in Florida.
Is it also just too expensive in Florida now? Because
Yes,
you
that's
notice
also
the
a factor.
patterns of prices shot up in Florida, especially
Thanks to the shortage in
during the
2022.
pandemic. And now,
And 21.
is it reaching a point where affordability is just a major issue?
Yeah, well, it's not as cheap as people thought. I mean, everybody came down thinking that I don't have personal income tax for the state, and that's going to save me so much money. Well,
Not really.
what they didn't
It helps.
factor in is the way the property taxes work in Florida is that you're assessed at
Extremely
your purchase
expensive.
price at approximately 1.8%. So every time the properties turn over, the tax basis really jumped up. And of course you can homestead, but in terms of your day-to-day living expenses in areas like Miami and Palm Beach County, they're the exact same.
These people are
as
so
here
out
in
of touch.
Manhattan.
Let's talk a little bit about
There's more to
mortgage
Florida than
rates.
just
They've
Miami
eased some, but
and frickin' Palm
it's
Beach.
not enough in terms of when we notice national trends where you see a significant shift in buying. What does it take to move the housing market when it comes to mortgage rates?
Yeah, so I'm not holding my breath on mortgage rates. I think
You
we
got to
might
skyrocket
see
the
a
rates.
pullback
That's what
of
you got to do.
half a basis point at most by the end of the year. And that's because the Fed funds rate does not really determine mortgage rates. They're much more so driven by supply and demand. And with this continually frozen marketplace where sellers are expecting too high prices and buyers are sitting on their hands because they're nervous, and frankly, life is expensive right now.
It's not because they're nervous. It's because they can't afford it. They can't afford it. The average family cannot afford a $400,000 house. They don't make $107,000 a year.
No,
People,
I don't
damn.
expect these mortgage rates to move much.
You describe the housing market in 3 tranches: entry level, keeping up with the Joneses,
It just
and
seems
the
so
anti-herd.
disingenuous, man.
What does that mean, and which group is feeling the economic pressure the most?
Yeah, so typically entry level in the markets that I work, Manhattan, the Hamptons, Palm Beach, Miami.
Well, there you have
entry
it. That's
level
why
is
she's so
below
damn
$2
out of
million.
touch.
That stayed strong. Those people expect
She only represents
to
the
have a
elites,
mortgage. They've
not the other
already factored it
99%
in.
of us.
We've seen prices adjust accordingly. Now, in the $2 to $10 million, which I call the keeping up with the Jones sector in those particular markets, and granted, those numbers change depending on your portion of the country.
Hilarious waste
But
of money.
Keeping up with the Joneses are the ones who have been hit with the 1-2 punch. Not only are they beholden to elevated mortgage rates, but they've also seen some
don't buy a
challenge
$10 million
on,
house,
their,
you bonehead.
either their stock portfolio or in terms of the job market. They have seen this lifestyle creep where they have been exposed to ultra low rates and borrowing potential over the last decade. Now they've gotten used to a certain comfortability, and it's just not in their wheelhouse anymore in terms of affordability.
Well, too bad.
When you think about, to your point about affordability,
chickens have
obviously
come
all
home
of
to
this
roost,
sounds like the
in other words.
luxury housing market. When there's a person in
Luxury
that
housing
industry, if they're
market.
not from, a family of wealth, and let's say they, made it on their own.
Yeah, let's say that they're,
if they're not
99% of the
an entrepreneur and
population.
They just have a very well-paid job. If they lose that job, because I have heard of, someone, let's say, for instance, losing their job and they made $750,000 a year, or let's say it's closer to $1 million.
Yeah, they
it's hard
tend to
find a
lose
job
everything
like
very
that.
quickly.
How does that impact the shifts and patterns that you're seeing in the housing market?
Yeah, and that's
But not
a
always.
big
Sometimes they
portion
save.
of why people have not been pulling the trigger as buyers. Even though they've seen these prices pull back, they're scared about their jobs.
Prices pull back. What in the hell is she talking
So
about?
what if they get into a situation where they can no longer afford what they thought that they could afford? So I think that factors into the fear, trepidation, the frozen nature of the market right now is just because.
Well, no, it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that houses have literally doubled in cost over just the last couple of years, and wages are basically the same.
We don't know
It has
what's
nothing to do with
around
that.
the corner. We get so
It's just
much
buyer's
impactful
remorse.
news every week that we're just waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Waiting for the other shoe to drop. That certainly seems to be the case.
And you know what's funny is that you really can't believe what these quote unquote experts say. I mean, like, look, I really don't want to throw this movie in as an example, but the movie The Big Short, if you ever seen that, all the news pundits, all of these experts, they kept saying the housing market is fine. The housing market's the bedrock of our economy, and it's as stable can get. And then just September 15th of 2008, it all just kind of fell apart, just out of nowhere. But until that day came, they kept saying everything was strong. The housing market is rocketing ahead. Look how much housing is going up in prices. Everybody's rocking and rolling. It's all amazing. And then it all just completely fell apart. So it just makes me wonder if that's coming sooner rather than later. I mean, something's got to give. Something's really got to give. But anyway, so let me just go up here to the final one. This one it's more local to my area. It's a Tampa Bay housing market favoring buyers right now. So I thought I'd check this out and see what they're saying about what's going on locally. It's only 2 minutes long.
There's a big change in the Tampa Bay housing market.
Oh, wait, hold on. Let me turn this down a bit because that's going to be loud. All right, here we
For
go.
the first time in a long time, it is a buyer's market.
Wow,
The real estate company
buyer's
Redfin
market.
looked at housing markets across the U.S. and found that there are more sellers.
Was that a
Company
lizard there?
Redfin
Oh, no,
looked
never
at
mind.
housing markets across the
My
U.S.
bad.
and found that there are more
All right.
sellers than buyers right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah,
as Fox 13's
that's a
Ariel
good thing.
Placencia says, the Tampa Bay area happens to be one of the hottest buyers market in the country right now.
You know, everybody's home is special.
Still
It's
way
unique,
too
it has
expensive.
A story, it has its perks, but if you want a home to move in this market, you need to price it aggressively.
When talking to clients selling their
Good.
home, Bay Area real estate agent Mia Annabelle says sometimes coming to an agreement on the list price can be difficult.
And I said, just to give you
Because people think their house is worth a lot more than it really
there are
is.
182 single-family homes for sale in a 2-mile radius.
Good.
2 miles.
I hope it
of
jumps
your
to
home.
300.
That echoes what researchers with Redfin found, that there are more sellers than buyers these days.
Good.
Redfin ranked the top 10 hottest buyers markets as of April. Tampa landed in the 6th spot. And look at the rest of the top 10 cities. 6 are in Florida.
Still almost
It's a much more
$400,000.
relaxed
That's
time
still
for a
insane,
buyer
man.
to buy a home than it was.
That's just an
3-4
average-ass
years
house, too.
ago. It used to be 5 days on market on average in very hot markets, sometimes 2.
Well, yeah, you can thank COVID for that. Back in 2021, when everything was back open in Florida, meanwhile, the Democrats all across the country, they kept everything locked down because, they love the authoritarian nightmare that they created, and people fled those areas, and they took their massive savings, or really they sold the house where they were for like $700,000, $800,000, $900,000, and they came down to Florida, and they were just paying cash all over the place. And it drove down, like inventory across the whole state, I think it actually dropped below 10,000 properties statewide. And now it's up over 200,000. It's like 230,000 properties and climbing right now.
It didn't even make it past the weekend, and the buyers now have a lot more options to look at.
A couple of years have passed now since the state saw that big boom during COVID. So some sellers, local real estate agents say, may still be living in the past.
They believe that their property has increased in value over the last year. So they're pricing it higher than what they should, and that's where you're
That's
seeing
all right.
that
Let us
price
sit on the market
decrease.
then.
Homes are
They
staying
won't
on the
sell
market
it.
a little bit longer, and buyers are able to negotiate a little bit more.
Other factors behind this recent shift to a buyer's market could be economic uncertainty and mortgage rates, experts add.
And then I think, the last hurricane season really scared a lot of people.
But
Good.
ask local real estate
Good.
agents, and they'll tell you it's important to remember that location.
They have to be
is
reminded,
everything.
Florida has
We're still in
hurricanes,
a very
dude.
balanced
It's fucking Florida. We have hurricanes. You're not going to live in a magical, tropical fairyland where hurricanes don't happen here in Florida. They happen, and they're going to happen again and again and again. And that's just the way it is. So anyway, that was the last one. I will say just the last thing to finish on. I started renting the house that I'm in right now back in 2018. It was like around February. And back then, obviously pre-COVID, it was very hard to find a house to rent. They were getting gobbled up like within an hour. I mean, I remember refreshing the page over and over, and I wasn't looking at just one website. I was looking at other websites and just refreshing every hour just to see the next one that came up that was in my affordability range. I would immediately call them and see if I could get in and check it out. You know, I already had like the security deposit, like all that already ready to go. And the house that I found, they listed it. I called them within 15 minutes of them listing it. They said that they were at the house currently, and there was another couple that were over taking a look at it. And they're like, "Yeah, you're welcome to stop by." And we came by and checked it out. It was absolutely perfect. You know, it's a small little house and is in a good location and everything. And, you know, not to bore you with details, but the other couple that were here, they had 2 big dogs, and the landlord didn't want big dogs here. And I've got just 2 cats, and he was fine with that. And, you know, like, I'm responsible for my cats. I take good care of them, obviously. I mean, I'm obsessed with kitties. But anyway, so we got in and still here, was able to ride out through COVID. Obviously, it's gotten way more expensive, and it's frankly pretty scary. But apparently over the last year, rental prices have dropped about 8% in Tampa Bay from what I've read. And back in 2018, when a house or probably even a condo that would go up on the market for rent would get swiped off the market within hours, right now, at least in Pinellas County, the average amount of time that a house is sitting for rent before it's taken is about 2 weeks. So, I mean, I think that's kind of good news, at least for people who are just trying to get by day like myself. So hopefully things will keep getting better. I mean, not just in this area, but nationwide. I mean, at the end of the day, house prices have to come down, and if they have to skyrocket interest rates, so be it. I mean, whatever it is that they have to do. I mean, if we have to start ramping up the timber industry, we got to start. Look, if we have a shortage of wood, or if wood is 4 times more expensive than it was in 2020 or 2021, sounds like that we got to start cutting down more trees. We got to start, you know, we got to ramp up these industries. I mean, why the hell is all this shit costing so much money? You know, and if it's a supply issue, well, it sounds like that we need to get down to business and start getting our industries back up and running again, because obviously there's not enough happening for these prices for building materials to come down. I mean, at the end of the day, it's supply and demand. If there's not enough supply, there's going to be a high demand, and it's going to go up. So why don't we just increase the supply and start knocking down some trees, plant little saplings behind them so all the environmentalists can stay happy, and then 40, 50 years from now, a couple generations, they'll have big, beautiful trees that they can chop down, and then they can plant the saplings next to them, and so on and so forth. And I don't know, but hopefully things will start getting back to normal relatively soon. I mean, it's laughable to even think that things will get back to normal. I mean, what is even normal anymore? I mean, it's been 5 years since COVID first broke out, and things just economically just seem to be getting worse, but not entirely. I mean, things are getting very, very slightly better, but it's at a snail's pace. I mean, if the overall housing market in value has only dropped about 1% over the last year, that is clearly not fast enough. So we'll just see what the future brings. But until then, thanks a lot for watching, and please subscribe. Please like the video if you can, and I'll see you later.